Hey everybody, it's Don again from North of Detroit Outdoors. Thanks for joining me. You may remember from my last video, I gave a review of the Alpha Burly Pro 18-inch boot made by Lacrosse. This is a one-year review after one hunting season. I had four main criteria driving my decision for these boots. They were: 1, they had to be warm, naturally. 2, they have to be waterproof. 3, I wanted a taller pair of boots because I've typically only worn the ankle boots. And then the fourth criteria, and maybe the most important for me, is that it has to work with my Lone Wolf Assault hand climber. So did this boot perform exactly like I wanted it to when I purchased it? Well, as is typical, the answer to that is yes and no. I'm going to talk about the things that I really liked and the things that I didn't like at all. So we're going to get into that right now. Uh-oh, I got blood on them. So when it came to measuring the criteria for these boots, well, 3 of the 4 I already knew before I even got out into the field. I knew they were waterproof, I knew they were tall enough, and I knew that they worked very well with my Lone Wolf Assault hand climber. The only question that I had was how warm were they going to be? But before we talk about warmth, we have to understand that my expectations were really low to begin with. Because I had talked to owners of hunting shops and friends who have been hunting for decades, and there was no one who could tell me of one particular boot that was going to keep my feet nice and toasty in those really frigid temperatures like in late December, early January. It just didn't exist. Now, these boots have 800 grams of Thinsulate insulation. My previous boots only had 600 grams. Could I tell the difference? Well, not really. I knew that I was going to have to use a supplementary heat source with these boots, which I do when I have with these heated socks that I have. And when it gets really, really cold, I'll add some chemical toe warmers as well. With everything that I use to keep my feet warm, I think they did an admirable job. So when it came to the second criteria, waterproof, I had no issues with these boots at all. Lacrosse has a really good reputation, and I've not heard of anyone having any leaks or the boots becoming waterlogged prematurely. So I was pretty confident that that wasn't going to be a problem. And I'm happy that I have them because I did ford some streams that were, up to my ankle, and even some that were really, really deep. But at no time did I have any water enter the boot, and my feet stayed nice and dry. In fact, in January, when I started to do a little ice fishing, I took these boots with me because I needed the added protection that they would provide. My other boots, they were okay, but my feet got a lot colder because the cold water was constantly splashing on those, and that leather didn't repel the water as quickly as this rubber did. So even though I bought these for hunting, I also used them for ice fishing as well. So the last criteria was not a stretch at all. I knew well before I went into the field that these Alpha Burly Pro boots worked very well with my Lone Wolf Assault hand climber. So if you have a climber similar to mine, rest assured it's going to work just fine. So one of the things I really like about these boots that I talked about in my initial review is that you're able to fold these boots down. And I really need that because with the socks that I use, the batteries are hidden in a little pouch here. And I don't want to turn my batteries on as soon as I leave the truck and when I'm walking to my set because my feet are already going to be warm at that point. What I really want is to turn it on as soon as I feel the least bit of chill. And that may be half an hour, hour after I'm in the stand already. So it's nice for me to reach down after I'm in my stand to turn the battery on. I can do this quickly, I can do it quietly, and at the same time I'm conserving valuable battery life. As you'll see in this next clip, another benefit of being able to roll these boots down so easily is that it allows you to tuck the bottom of your bibs into your boot. Now, if you are walking through a swampy area or a muddy area, or perhaps you're in contact with blood, this prevents you from having to wash your bibs as often, and that cuts down on the wear and tear. So that's something I really appreciate. So So one of the good things about these boots for me is the ability to take them on and off very quickly. Now, prior to purchasing these boots, I read a lot of reviews, and people, especially people who had larger calves, had a struggle getting these boots on and off to the point where they dreaded using them because it was that difficult. For me, however, I have no issues. I just happen to have a body type and leg type that work very, very well with these boots, and I'm pleased with that because I would hate to have to deal with the issues that other people are dealing with. So I've talked about a lot of the things that I really like about the boot. I didn't talk about necessarily the things that I don't like, and there aren't many. You know, it's a decent boot. It doesn't do anything exceptionally well from what I can tell, but you know there are a couple of things that I guess cause for concern. The first is the fact that when I put these boots on, the inside of each boot is different from the other. So when I put my foot in the right boot, it feels just fine. When I put it in the left boot, it has a little more room in there. It seems like it's shaped. The inside of the boot is shaped a little bit differently. And when I walk, my heel lifts out of the left boot, unlike it does in the right boot. And when it does that, there's a suction sound that I can hear when I'm walking. Now, it's not really a big deal. The boots are still comfortable, but the quality control on these, I guess they weren't really up to par because of the differences on the inside of the boot. Again, it's not that big of an issue, but it's something that I just wanted to note. So another thing I wanted to discuss about these boots that really bothered me is the pattern is wearing. Now, I talked about this in my initial review, my overview. And I read some comments and reviews from people who mentioned that that was going to happen. Now, I had hoped that that was an anomaly and that those experiences wouldn't be something that I had to deal with. But sure enough, I'm noticing that on the front toe of the boot, the pattern is wearing. And, that is a concern for me because naturally I bought these boots hoping that they would keep this look for as long as I had them. Because I haven't seen that other people who have Lacrosse boots have the same issue. I mean, their pattern seems to stay a lot longer. I'm not sure if it's something about this particular pattern, the Optifade Elevated 2 pattern that's the same as on the Sitka gear. I don't know of why this would be any different than any other pattern they have on Lacrosse boots, but it seems to be an issue. And, that does bother me. When I do reviews on other gear, I may point out the good and the bad. And sometimes the gear is so good that the bad is outweighed so heavily that it's almost a non-issue. In this particular case, the boot is okay. It's nothing stellar. It doesn't do anything so well that it can cause me to overlook these types of issues. So it just makes it that much worse for me when I see the wear on the toe. And you notice it's only on the toe and it's not necessarily up on the top part of the boot, the top of the foot or the leg part of the boot. So those are my thoughts on the Lacrosse Alpha Burly Pro 18-inch boot. Now there are some things that I liked about the boot, like the fact that you can fold it down, which makes it nice and convenient. But there are other things that I didn't like so much. The fact that the quality control seems to be lacking, especially when it comes to the pattern that's fading on the boot. Now I did read reviews prior to purchasing these, and I noticed that other people had the same issue, and I still did it anyway. So really that's on me. The real question is, if given the opportunity, would I purchase these boots again? And knowing what I know now, the answer would probably be no. I may look at another boot like the Muck boot or something else comparable to it, simply because this is very discouraging to me and not at all what I was hoping to see. At the end of the day, it's going to be a boot that serves me well. It's not going to change how I hunt, and it's not going to have a real impact on anything I do out in the field. It's just the impression for me is just, it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. So that's my honest review of the Lacrosse Alpha Burly Pro 18-inch boot. I know that the boots met my initial criteria, but some of the things that occurred after the fact really skewed my opinion. So if you have a different opinion, or you want to know more about what I covered in the review, please feel free to leave that in the comments and I'll respond to you as soon as I can. In the meantime, I wish you great success in the field, and I look forward to seeing you right here on North of Detroit Outdoors in the next video.